It was one of those sticky summer nights when the air clings to your skin and every sound seems louder than it should be. Olivia Bennet had been home for less than an hour, still wearing the silk blouse she'd had on since morning, when she stepped into the hallway to check on a noise. It was nothing important, probably the neighbour's teenager playing music again, but she didn't think to grab her phone or her keys. The door clicked shut behind her, that heavy sound echoing down the hall like a bad joke. She turned the handle. It didn't budge. She tried again, harder this time, still locked. That's when the realisation hit. No phone, no purse, no way back in. Just her, barefoot on the hallway carpet, holding a half-eaten container of pasta she'd planned to eat straight from the fridge. The elevator dinged somewhere below, its hum disappearing into the quiet, and for the first time all day, Olivia felt the kind of helpless that no fancy job title could fix. She sank to the floor, the silk sticking to her back from the heat, her hair falling loose around her face. She wasn't the type to curse out loud, but in her head they were lining up like a marching band. She thought about the endless meetings she'd just survived, about firing someone she'd known for years, about the fact that she hadn't eaten anything except bad coffee and a granola bar since morning, and now this. Somewhere at the far end of the hall there was a faint creak, then the soft roll of wheels, slow and steady. Olivia looked up to see a man pushing a stroller, moving carefully so as not to wake the small figure curled up inside. The hallway light caught his face for a moment. Strong features, kind eyes, the kind of tired that comes from more than just lack of sleep. When he noticed her sitting there, he slowed to a stop. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his voice low so he wouldn't disturb the child. Olivia managed a half smile. Locked out, no phone, no plan. The corner of his mouth lifted in something between sympathy and amusement. "Happens to the best of us," he said. Then he adjusted the blanket around the little girl, his movements practiced, careful. For reasons she couldn't explain, Olivia didn't feel embarrassed anymore. There was something about the way he stood there, protective yet open, that made her want to say more. She just didn't know it yet. This was the night a locked door would lead her somewhere she never expected. The man came a little closer, the stroller wheels whispering over the carpet. Up close, Olivia could see the little girl inside, maybe 5 years old, her hair a tangle of soft brown waves, one small hand clutching a stuffed bear like it was the most important thing in the world. The man stopped a few feet away, giving her space, like he understood without asking that no one likes to feel cornered when they're already having a bad night. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly, glancing down at the girl. "And this is Lily. She's been having a rough week with nightmares, so midnight hallway walks are our thing now." Olivia leaned forward a little, careful not to wake the child. "Hi, Lily." The girl's eyelids fluttered, and she gave a tiny nod before tucking her bear closer. Ethan smiled faintly at the small gesture, the kind of smile that comes from knowing every habit your child has. "You live here?" Olivia asked, partly to keep the conversation going, partly because his presence felt oddly reassuring. "5th floor," he said. "We moved in about 6 months ago, still getting used to the place." His voice had a worn warmth to it, like someone who's had to start over more than once, but refuses to lose the softer parts of himself. She noticed the way he stood, balanced but ready to move, one hand on the stroller, one eye always on Lily. "And you?" he asked. "Been here long?" "Long enough to know better than to step into the hallway without my keys," she said with a small laugh. He chuckled, shaking his head. "You'd be surprised how many people do it. I've helped a neighbour or two before. Not that I'm some kind of lock-picking pro, but..." He trailed off, eyes flicking to the locked door behind her. She tilted her head. "But?" He shrugged lightly. "But maybe I could try something. No promises, though." In that moment, Olivia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It had been such a long day, and now here was this stranger, a single dad in a faded hoodie, offering help without a trace of pity in his voice. It felt rare. She didn't realise it yet, but saying yes to him was about to turn a simple act of kindness into something neither of them would forget. Ethan parked the stroller beside her door and crouched down to rummage through the basket underneath. Olivia noticed how quiet the hallway felt now, just the faint hum of the building's air conditioning, and the soft breathing of the little girl curled in blankets. He pulled out what looked like a worn tool pouch, the leather edges frayed from years of use, and set it gently on the carpet. While he sifted through the tools, Olivia found herself studying him without meaning to. His hoodie had a faint paint stain on one sleeve. His hands were strong but nicked here and there, the kind of marks you get from fixing things rather than sitting at a desk. "So, what do you do?" she asked, more to fill the silence than anything else. He glanced up briefly. "A bit of everything. Fences, appliances, repairs. Did maintenance for years before the company shut down. Been piecing things together since then. It's a scramble sometimes." His voice stayed calm, but there was a quiet honesty in it, the kind that didn't beg for sympathy. Olivia nodded. "Raising her on your own?" "Yeah," he said simply, eyes softening as he glanced at Lily. "Not always easy, but I wouldn't trade it." They sat there for a moment, the kind of pause that wasn't awkward at all. Olivia leaned her head back against the wall, realising she hadn't had a conversation like this, one without agendas or interruptions, in months. Ethan tapped the end of a thin metal pick against his palm. "All right," he said with a faint grin. "Let's see if the old tricks still work." Olivia wasn't sure what to expect, but something about his quiet confidence made her want to watch closely. She didn't know it then, but this wasn't just about getting her door open. It was the start of opening something else entirely. Ethan knelt by the door, the metal tool glinting under the dim hallway light. He worked with the kind of patience that comes from years of doing things the hard way, slow, steady, without rushing just to get it over with. Olivia sat cross-legged a few feet away, the container of pasta now resting on the floor beside her, watching his hands move. "You've done this before," she said, half teasing. He smirked without looking up. "Once or twice. Usually for folks who lock themselves out of the laundry room, though, not luxury apartments." She smiled at the way he said it, not mocking, just matter of fact. The hallway was warm, the air heavy, but for some reason she felt calmer now than she had in hours. There was a faint click inside the lock. Ethan paused, adjusted his grip, and tried again. Lily stirred in the stroller, letting out a small sigh, and he instinctively glanced back to make sure she was still asleep before returning to the door. That tiny gesture, checking on her without breaking focus, made something tighten in Olivia's chest. A moment later there was a soft, decisive snap. The handle turned easily under his hand. Ethan pushed the door open just enough for the cool air from inside to spill out into the hallway. Olivia blinked, almost surprised. "That's it, you just opened it." He stepped back, slipping the tool into his pocket. "Guess I still remember a thing or two." She laughed then. A real laugh, the kind that felt like it shook loose some of the day's weight. "You might have just saved my sanity." "Glad to be of service," he said, straightening up. She hesitated in the doorway, one hand on the frame. "At least let me thank you properly. Breakfast, tomorrow morning, my treat." He glanced at Lily, who was still sleeping soundly, her small hand wrapped around the bear. "Only if you don't mind crayons at the table." "I insist on it," she said, smiling. And in that moment, neither of them could have guessed how much one shared breakfast would change. The next morning, the little corner cafe on Maple Street smelled like fresh bread and dark coffee. Olivia was already at a table by the window when she saw Ethan push open the door, guiding Lily inside. He wore the same hoodie from the night before, and somehow it made him look even more approachable in the soft morning light. Lily, still in her pyjama top under a denim jacket, clutched a handful of coloured pencils. Olivia waved them over. "I got us a booth in the back," she said, sliding her phone into her bag without thinking twice. Normally she would have been scrolling through emails by now, but this morning felt different. They settled into the booth, Lily immediately spreading out her paper and crayons, her small hands moving with the focus only a child could have. Ethan ordered pancakes for her, black coffee for himself. Olivia ordered the same, surprising herself. She usually went for something much fancier. "So," Ethan said, leaning back, "what's your plan for today? Hopefully it doesn't involve getting locked out again." She grinned. "I think I'll keep my keys close this time." For a while they talked about nothing and everything. The best diners in the neighbourhood, the way the subway seemed more crowded in the summer, how Lily had a habit of drawing suns with sunglasses. Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in weeks. At one point, Ethan's tone shifted just slightly. "You said last night you'd had a rough day. Board meeting?" She hesitated, swirling her coffee. "Something like that. I'm in charge of a pretty big company. Yesterday was one of those days when every decision feels like the wrong one." Ethan nodded, not impressed or intimidated, just listening. "Everybody's got those days. Doesn't matter what's on your business card." The way he said it, without any hint of judgment, caught her off guard. Most people either treated her job like a trophy or a weapon. He just saw her as someone who'd had a bad day. Lily held up her drawing then. 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "That's you," she said to Olivia, pointing at the tallest figure. Olivia smiled, her chest tightening in a way she couldn't name. By the time breakfast was over, she realised she hadn't checked her phone once. And as they stood outside, Ethan shifted Lily's jacket onto her shoulders and said, "Thanks for breakfast." "Any time," Olivia replied, meaning it more than she expected. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the first of many mornings that would start just like this. 2 days later, Olivia was coming back from a late afternoon meeting, her mind still buzzing with numbers and half-finished thoughts, when she stepped into the lobby of her building and heard a voice she recognised. It was Ethan, steady and calm, speaking to the building's security guard. She slowed her pace, curious. He was standing near the far wall, sleeves pushed up, holding a small flashlight while the guard fumbled with the breaker box. A faint smell of burnt wiring hung in the air. "Try it now," Ethan said, and the overhead lights flickered back to life, drawing a relieved sigh from the guard. "You just saved me a call to the electrician," the guard chuckled. Ethan shrugged, wiping his hands on an old rag he'd pulled from his back pocket. "No problem, I've fixed worse." Olivia stepped closer, leaning against the marble counter. "Do you always rescue people in this building, or am I just lucky?" He turned, a little surprised to see her, and grinned. "Guess I have a habit." They fell into step together as he walked toward the elevators, Lily nowhere in sight this time. "She's with a neighbour for a bit," he explained before she could ask. "I'm trying to squeeze in some work between bedtime routines." "What kind of work?" she asked. "Anything I can get my hands on. Some days it's replacing a fence post, other days it's fixing a busted dryer." He glanced at her, a flicker of humour in his eyes. "And apparently, emergency hallway lockouts." She laughed, the sound echoing faintly in the quiet lobby. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. "I have to admit," she said, "I'm impressed. You seem to know how to fix just about everything." Ethan shrugged again, but there was a note of pride in his voice. "When you're raising a kid alone, you learn fast. You don't always get to wait for someone else to show up." Something in the way he said it stuck with her. Not just the words, but the quiet strength behind them. And though neither of them knew it yet, this small elevator ride was going to lead to a much bigger conversation. The next week, Olivia spotted Ethan again. This time in the small community room on the first floor, kneeling beside a washing machine with its front panel open. A couple of residents stood nearby, watching as he tightened a screw and wiped away the streak of soap suds on the tile floor. She lingered in the doorway for a moment, just watching. There was an ease in the way he moved, the way he explained what he was doing to the older gentleman beside him, making sure the man could handle it next time without help. It wasn't just about fixing the machine. He seemed to have a way of making people feel capable. When the job was done, he packed up his tools and she walked in. "You really are the unofficial handyman of this building, aren't you?" Ethan laughed, tucking a screwdriver into his bag. "Guess so. Someone's got to keep this place running." They stepped out into the hallway, the scent of laundry detergent still hanging in the air. Olivia hesitated before speaking, weighing her words. "I've been working on something. A new program through my company. It's a community project that offers training and job placement for single parents. Real skills, steady work. It's important to me." Ethan glanced at her, his brow furrowing just slightly. "Sounds like a good thing." "I think you'd be perfect for it," she said, meeting his eyes. "Not as a trainee, as someone who teaches. You've got the skills, the patience, and..." She hesitated, smiling softly. "People listen to you." For a moment he didn't answer. He shifted the strap of his tool bag higher on his shoulder. "I don't know, Olivia. I've never done anything official like that. And I just don't want to feel like I'm there as a favour for a door I opened." She shook her head. This isn't charity. It's a chance for you to do what you're already doing, but with the resources to reach more people. Think about it, okay? He nodded slowly, the hint of a smile tugging at his mouth. All right, I'll think about it. Neither of them knew it yet, but this conversation was going to be the start of something that would change more than just Ethan's work. It would change his life. 2 days later, Ethan showed up at the training centre Olivia's company had just opened on the edge of the neighbourhood. He hadn't called ahead or given her a warning, just walked in with his tool bag slung over one shoulder and that same worn hoodie zipped halfway up. Olivia looked up from her desk in the corner, surprised. I didn't think I'd see you this soon. He gave a small shrug. Figured I'd take a look before I said yes. Maybe help out a little, see if I even belong here. She led him to the workshop in the back where a handful of trainees, parents in their 20s, 30s, even a few in their 40s, were struggling to assemble a set of basic shelving units. The air smelled faintly of sawdust and fresh paint. Ethan walked over without hesitation, crouched beside one of the trainees, and showed them how to line up the brackets so the shelves wouldn't wobble. He didn't bark instructions or make anyone feel small, he explained, then stepped back and let them try. When they got it right, he nodded with quiet approval. Over the next hour, he moved through the room, tightening bolts, offering tips, and telling stories about repairs he'd done in the past. The ones that went well and the ones that didn't. The laughter that followed each small failure story made the whole space feel lighter. Olivia watched from the doorway. This wasn't someone just helping out. This was someone who made people feel like they could handle more than they thought they could. When the session wrapped up, a little boy ran up to Ethan holding a crooked birdhouse. I made this, the boy said proudly. Ethan knelt down, looked it over like it was a piece of art and said, Looks solid, the birds are gonna love it. Lily appeared in the doorway then, holding a piece of paper. She'd drawn 3 figures, 2 tall ones and a small one in the middle, under a big sun. I made this for you, she said, handing it to Olivia. Olivia felt her throat tighten as she took it. Thank you, sweetheart. Ethan caught her eye. Maybe I do belong here after all. She smiled. I knew it the night you opened that door. By the end of the week, Ethan had signed the paperwork. He was now officially part of the training centre staff, though the way he carried himself, you'd think he'd been there for years. He came in early, stayed late, and seemed to know exactly when to push someone to try harder, and when to step back and let them figure it out. Olivia stopped by often, sometimes under the excuse of checking on the programme's progress, though she knew it wasn't just about that. She liked being there, liked the way the place felt when Ethan was in the room. It wasn't just that the shelves were straighter or the tools better organised. There was a hum of energy, a quiet confidence that seemed to spread from him to everyone else. One afternoon, she arrived to find Lily sitting at a workbench, tiny legs swinging as she coloured a scrap piece of cardboard. A couple of trainees were showing her how to hammer nails into a block of wood, each one making her giggle. Ethan was across the room, talking a young father through how to replace a faucet. His voice was patient, steady, never condescending. When he noticed Olivia, he gave a quick wave before finishing his instructions. Later, as the workshop wound down, they ended up standing side by side near the doorway, watching Lily proudly display her wood sculpture to anyone who passed. You've built something good here, Ethan said quietly, glancing at her. Not just the programme, the feeling. People walk in carrying the weight of everything they've been through and somehow they leave a little lighter. Olivia met his gaze, the words settling deep. We've built it, she corrected. For a moment, there was nothing else. No sounds but the distant chatter of trainees packing up. No movement but Lily dancing in the corner with her cardboard creation. And in that small, still moment, Olivia realised she didn't just see Ethan as someone she'd met by chance in a hallway. He'd become part of her days in a way she hadn't planned for, and she wasn't sure she wanted to imagine it any other way. One evening in late summer, Olivia stopped by Ethan's apartment to drop off a folder of programme notes. She'd intended to hand it over quickly and head home, but Lily tugged her inside with that unstoppable 5-year-old enthusiasm. Stay for story time, Lily said, pulling her toward the couch. Ethan raised an eyebrow, smiling. We don't usually have guest narrators, but I think we can make an exception. Lily climbed onto Olivia's lap, settling in with her stuffed bear. Tell me the one about the night you met Daddy. Olivia laughed softly, glancing at Ethan. That's your favourite, huh? Lily nodded. It's the best one. So Olivia began about how she'd stepped into the hallway barefoot, holding cold pasta, thinking it was just another bad night. About the stroller wheels in the quiet, and the man with kind eyes who didn't walk past, but stopped to ask if she was okay. She told it like a bedtime adventure, weaving in the sound of the lock clicking open, the first breakfast with crayons the mornings that followed, that Ethan leaned against the doorway listening, a small smile tugging at his mouth. The way she told it, you'd think it was the most natural thing in the world. A locked door leading to something worth so much more than the place she was trying to get back into. When she finished, Lily clapped her hands once, content. That's a good story, she said, resting her head on Olivia's shoulder. Ethan crossed the room, taking the folder from her hand. It is a good story, he said quietly, eyes meeting hers. And it's still being written. Olivia smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. Then let's make it a long one. Outside, the evening air was warm and still, the kind of night that made the city feel almost gentle. As she walked home, Olivia thought about that first night, the heat, the silence, the sound of stroller wheels, and the heavy door that had shut behind her. She realised it hadn't really locked her out at all. It had opened the right door, the one that mattered. Sometimes, the moments that feel like setbacks are really the beginnings of something better. A closed door isn't always the end. It can lead you to the right one. And kindness, even in the smallest form, has the power to change not just someone else's life, but your own. Thank you for staying with me until the very last moment of this story. I'm truly grateful for that. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again on Rain Inside.